So, today we're diving into a fantastic story of pure wit versus raw power. It's about a legendary court jester, Gopal Bhaur, who gets trapped by an impossible order from his king. The challenge? To win a bet that's literally designed for him to lose. So, how on earth does he pull it off?
Wow. It all boils down to this one single, incredibly defiant line. Now, how does a fun-loving court jester get to the point where he's saying that to his own king? Well, to get it, we've got to go back to the beginning. Back to a royal feast where everything went sideways.
The whole mess, the conflict that nearly got our hero into some serious trouble, it started with something kind of simple, actually. A bucket of sweets. We're at this huge royal feast, a day of celebration that's about to become a serious battle of wills. Now, Gopal was famous for his appetite, but this was something else. While all the other guests are politely taking a piece or two, Gopal, probably with a huge grin on his face, asks for the whole bucket. This little stunt, this act of playful greed, well, it didn't go over so well with the other guests, and especially not with his number one rival, the minister. To really get what happens next, you have to understand the dynamic between these two guys. Gopal and the minister had this classic snake and mongoose thing going on. The minister was just always looking for a way to trap Gopal, because he saw his influence with the king as a major threat. And Gopal's stunt with the sweets, for the minister, this was the golden opportunity he'd been waiting for. The minister totally seized the moment. He runs to the king, complaining about how Gopal's greed was a huge insult to everyone there. Goaded by his advisor and, pretty annoyed himself, the king just loses his temper and decides he's going to teach his jester a lesson he will never, ever forget. And listen, this wasn't just a simple scolding. Oh, no. The king issued a formal, kingdom-wide decree. It was absolute. No one, under any circumstances, was allowed to give Gopal any kind of sweet treat. Period. The king made sure this ban had serious teeth. Heralds announced it in every town square. If you break this rule, the punishment will be severe. But Gopal, who never backs down from a challenge, publicly declares that he's not only going to eat sweets, but he'll do it on New Year's Day, and they'll be given to him by someone else. The bet was officially on. And let me tell you, the king's decree worked. The fear out there was real. The punishment was so harsh that a simple shopkeeper, someone who probably knew Gopal for years, was just way too terrified to help him out. The entire kingdom had basically slammed the door in his face. So Gopal wasn't just up against a small problem, he was facing a massive wall of fear. He started to realize that his bold challenge might have been a huge miscalculation. Every single path to winning this bet seemed completely blocked off. His first few attempts were a total bust. He goes to a sweetmaker who gives him a hard no. Then he gets clever, or so he thinks, and goes to a sugarcane vendor, asking for the raw juice. But nope, denied again. The vendor argues that since juice is where sugar comes from, it counts as a forbidden sweet. The net was getting tighter and tighter. This ban was so intense, it followed him right into his own kitchen. His wife, scared of spies or getting in trouble, stopped adding even a tiny pinch of sugar to his food. His life, as he put it, had become pansé, completely flavorless. He was totally and utterly isolated. So, was he defeated? Not a chance. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Gopal did what he does best. He thought way outside the box. He realized he couldn't break the rule, so he had to find a different, more powerful rule, a cultural one, that would bend the king's decree to his will. Okay, at first glance, the steps in his plan look completely random. I mean, he gets a group of kids together, he writes out all these tiny shopping lists for stuff like lentils and spices, he has them buy everything on credit in his name, and then they collect invitations. None of this seems to have anything to do with sweets, right? And that is the million-dollar question. What's the connection here? How does buying a few groceries on credit lead to a box of sweets when the entire kingdom is forbidden from giving you any? Well, the answer lies in a really powerful cultural tradition. And here it is, the aha moment. It's called Halkaida. This tradition was Gopal's secret weapon. I mean, think about the genius of this. By becoming a debtor to dozens of shops, he wasn't just buying groceries, he was engineering a situation. On New Year's Day, those same shopkeepers would be culturally obligated to offer him sweets when he paid what he owed. It wasn't them giving him a gift, it was them following a sacred business tradition. Brilliant. So, New Year's Day finally arrives. The king and the minister are sitting in court, totally confident that Gopal has failed. But Gopal is nowhere to be found. See, he's busy putting the final piece of his masterpiece into motion. With his little army of kids following him, Gopal goes from shop to shop. At each one, he pays the tiny debt he owes. And at each and every shop, the owner, bound by the Halkata tradition, has absolutely no choice but to hand over a box of sweets. Look at that number, 31. That's not a lucky break, that is a systematic, flawlessly executed plan. He didn't just find one loophole, he created a whole army of them, collecting undeniable proof of his victory, one sweet box at a time. And then you have to picture the grand entrance. Gopal just strolls into the royal court, not empty-handed and defeated, but followed by a parade of children carrying baskets literally overflowing with sweets. The entire court, including the king and the minister, is just left completely and utterly speechless. This is the checkmate. The king is trapped and he knows it. He can't punish 31 law-abiding shopkeepers for following a sacred tradition without looking like a total tyrant and risking chaos in his kingdom. Gopal didn't break the king's law. He found a higher law, the law of culture, to beat it. This is Gopal's final, devastating move. He just lays the king's dilemma bare for the entire court to see. He's not just asking a question, he's showing everyone that his plan was so perfect, so tied to the well-being of the kingdom itself, that punishing him just isn't an option. The king, who's a pretty fair ruler at heart, just bursts out laughing and admits defeat. He lifts the ban. But remember, the bet had a second part. The loser has to give up sweets. So instead of making the king do it, Gopal suggests the punishment should fall on the person who started this whole mess, the minister. And in a perfect twist of fate, the minister's plot backfires on him completely. And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? Gopal Bhaur's story isn't just about sweets. It's a masterclass in creative problem solving. It suggests that when you're faced with rigid, unbreakable power, sometimes the sharpest weapon you've got is your own wit. Thanks for joining this explainer.